if I'm being totally honest. I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I just want to make so much money that I don't need to get any free brand collaborations anymore.
That is amazing. And I think I relate to you because everyone sees all the free stuff and they're like, oh my gosh, wait, I can get a free pair of leggings to just post about it. That's amazing. All right. Well, welcome to the Just Send It podcast. Today I'm here with Ava Johanna. How are you?
I'm doing so good. I'm so excited to be here. It's crazy to be here, sitting here talking with you. So I'm excited for the conversation.
Yes, me too. So Ava does a little bit of everything for those who don't know you yet. You have so many layers to you. You're a coach, you are a founder, an author, all these different things that you've done. Can you just give me a little introduction of yourself in your own words to what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am definitely a jack of all trades. I've been in the creator space for going on 10 years now. And so naturally within 10 years, I've evolved a lot. My brand has evolved a lot. But my impetus of starting was really falling in love with wellness and realizing after experiencing pretty severe corporate burnout that there was this whole world of wellness where I could combine my love of yoga, breathwork, meditation, creating with marketing, social media, all of the things that I was learning in my corporate career. And so over the last 10 years, I've certainly done a lot, from hosting a top podcast to launching a book. I'm the founder of the Academy of Breath, which is a 12-week breathwork and meditation certification, which we host both online and in person. Mm-hmm. And then finally, the last piece is that my Zone of Genius is really an empowering female owners of wellness businesses in how to actually leverage social media to be able to start and scale 6- and 7-figure brands.
Mm-hmm. That's so amazing. And seriously, like I said, you do so much. So it's amazing to unpack all these different layers of what you do. I'm curious because thinking about the person who might be watching this, who maybe is, let's just say, in the beginning phases of their business, they're a content creator and they kind of want to get started. What was the first way that you monetized your business? What was the first thing that you did?
Yeah, so the first thing that really kind of set my business in motion was back in 2016, as I was transitioning out of my corporate career, starting to work with a lot of different wellness professionals and helping them with everything from their website to their social media, their branding, their email marketing. And so I kind of was in this transitionary period where I was still holding on to a lot of the fulfillment side of marketing while simultaneously building my brand as a yoga teacher, a creator, and as a podcast host. And so that was kind of the first thing that I did. But from a creator perspective, as soon as I realized that as a individual who is not a celebrity, just somebody that had a couple thousand followers on Instagram, that I could be partnering with brands, that was the first direction that I went in. Because if I'm being totally honest, I just wanted a really cute set of yoga leggings. And when I realized I could have that, I was like, oh my God, there's a whole new world for me beyond just marketing and social media for other people. And so that was really when I went all in on learning how to work with brands, creating content, and really building my own personal brand.
That is amazing. And I think I relate to you because everyone sees all the free stuff and they're like, oh my gosh, wait, I can get a free pair of leggings to just post about it. That's amazing. What, I guess, was the first step that you took in order to do that? Because you had a smaller following is what you kind of told me. How were you, I guess, pitching yourself to these brands to kind of start that in motion?
Yeah, so I definitely went in with the mindset of what do these brands need rather than just what can I get from the brands. I think given the fact that I had worked on the B2B side for so long in my corporate career, I knew that if I wanted, as a smaller micro influencer, although I don't think that term was around at the time, to stand out, that it wasn't just about my following size, but it was really about the deliverables that I could bring to add value to the brands that I was working with. So for example, I remember right after I quit my corporate job, my partner and I went down to South America, and I was pitching all of these different travel companies that would take you on treks to Machu Picchu in Peru.
Oh my gosh.
And rather than just reaching out and saying, hey, can I get a free stay with you guys? I would create these packages where we would create video promo for them, basically video trailers of the actual trek experience. We would put together an album of photos that were more lifestyle photos that they would have the usage rights to. And then on top of that, also be adding in, and I have 5,000, 10,000 followers. Right. I'd be happy to post on my feed as well too. So I really came in, I think, more as a I guess UGC wasn't around at that time, or it wasn't, I guess, named UGC at that point, but really looking at how can I create user-generated content for these brands that adds inherently more value, because for the most part, they're not necessarily investing in that, but they need it in order to really stand out online.
Right. I actually really love that you talked about this, because essentially what you did was like work made for hire. Like, you were not necessarily leveraging your platform first, you were leveraging them. Like, you guys can use this content that I create in exchange for a stay or a product or whatever. And I think that's really unique. I love that you mentioned that, because I feel like most creators don't think that way. They just immediately think, okay, I have this many followers, let me just throw it all out and, word vomit it all into this email of what I can offer you. But it's really like what they need and leveraging that. Yeah. I love that you did that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, obviously the UGC market is huge nowadays, and I understand why, because at the end of the day, like, content and assets is one of the most valuable things that a brand needs in order to be able to properly create a vision and an emotion behind their brand in real life.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about today, because I know that you started maybe in brand deals, but you do so much else now. What are your main ways that you're monetizing now?
Yeah, I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I just want to make so much money that I don't need to get any free brand collaborations anymore. And so back in 2019, I decided to shift gears from a lot of different one-off brand collaborations that could be a little inconsistent into really focusing on pouring all of my energy into my own brand and taking a lot of what I was already doing with the wellness entrepreneurs that I was working with, but instead of doing it for them, doing it with them. So really shifting from a done for you model to a done with you model, and entering into more of the lens of a business consultant and coach. And so now, fast forward 5 years, I have really two main ways in which I've monetized my brand, or I guess three, including the book. But we have our Breathwork Academy, which is a 12-week program and ultimately is meant to serve mental health therapists, coaches, yoga teachers, practitioners in bringing breathwork and meditation into their core modalities that they already use with clients. And then what I found was that there's so many practitioners that are incredible at what they do, but do not have the business acumen and understand how to actually create a profitable wellness business once they've obtained all of these different certifications. So then the High Ticket Coach Academy was born, and that's really where we focus on empowering all of these different practitioners across the wellness space, primarily women, in tools around social media, branding, lead generation, paid advertising, and email marketing as well. So those are my main two focuses at this point. And then earlier this year, I obviously wrote my book, Your Vision Board Life, which has been a really incredible experience just as a creator to finally have a book out, but also has been a really incredible lower ticket offer for getting people into my world and then channeling them into the different offers that we have.
Right. We're definitely going to get into the book in a second, because I'm so curious about all of that, and I think it's amazing that you did that. Going back to the two different businesses that you run, where you basically take clients and you're coaching them either on the breathwork side of things and what you were talking about there, or the business side of things and running your wellness business, how are you actually getting clients for your business? Like, thinking back to when you first started or anything like that, what is your strategy there?
Yeah, so it's definitely changed over the years because the landscape of social media has changed so much. And so I think what we found in the beginning when I was just starting out was that my podcast was an incredible tool for lead generation, because that long form content really gave people the opportunity to build that no trust so quickly. And I remember when I launched my first offer, within a week I had completely sold out, and everyone came from the podcast because they had watched my journey and they said, I've been following you for years. I love what you've been able to create, and I just want to learn how to do that as well. So I think that long form content has always been really, really valuable for us. Since then, though, we've really shifted into more scalable ways of generating leads that doesn't necessarily tie to just my output as a creator, but can be really set up for longevity and be running in the background 24/7, 365. And so over the last year, we've been really focusing heavily on our paid advertising strategy and leveraging more paid advertising over organic in order to just have consistent high quality leads coming in. So it's a combination. I would say right now our main sources of lead generation are through paid advertising, the book, my organic channel as well, and then on top of that, our email list.
It's really interesting to hear the behind the scenes. So thank you for being willing to share that. And I hear you saying we. So I'm curious, at what point in your career did you decide to hire and eventually expand from it just being you to being a whole team?
Oh my goodness. Well, Sarah, I will tell you, I hired quickly and probably prematurely in positions that I didn't necessarily need to have. So although I will say when I brought on my podcast producer and my she was like PR/podcast, she was incredible. I was so broke at the time, like I did not have the money to be able to invest in that. However, she got the door open for me with a lot of really incredible creators, influencers, thought leaders to come on my podcast, and that was a huge part of the reason why my podcast within the first year surpassed over 500,000 downloads.
Wow.
And so that was one of the hires that was very early on that I probably didn't need to do, but I'm grateful that I did it. But when I really started focusing on stepping back from being every single hat in my business was about 3 years ago after I had launched my certification. At that point, I started seeing multiple like dozens of people coming into the program. The first launch that we had over 64 people, then I think 78. So we were having pretty up there in terms of client fulfillment. And at that point I realized I was only one person. I only have enough hours in the day. So if I am gonna be responsible for marketing, for admin, for fulfillment, I need to have somebody come in. And that's ultimately when I brought in a VA, which I believe is one of the most important hires that you can do, because at the end of the day, there are certain things that only you can do as a creator, and there's a lot of, I would say, I don't want to say lower value tasks, but just tasks that wouldn't pay at the same level as a C-level.
Right.
And so when you look at like what those tasks are and are able to essentially offload those pieces, it gives you so much more time to be creating, to be podcasting, to be in fulfillment. And that ultimately is where we started really focusing on, okay, who are the most important key players in order for us to continue growing while buying back more of my time to focus on the personal brand side of things, that I'm ultimately the only person that can do it.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this is not like new crazy information. It's like, focus on the things that you're good at. I think it's really hard to let go of everything, especially like I am so type A. Like I love to be involved in absolutely everything that I do. But at some point you kind of have to take a step back and realize that A, you're not good at everything. So give it to the people who are better. And also B, you don't have time to do everything. So like if you want to burn yourself out, like go try and do everything, but it's just not possible. I'm curious, at what point, like how often are you reevaluating these things in your business and looking at the whole picture and thinking like, okay, it's time for me to hire this and that and the other thing?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So ultimately, on a quarterly basis, I look at the business overall in terms of all of our KPIs. Like I'm very much data driven in my business, which I wasn't always. And I think that led to a lot of the emotional highs and lows, because you're really just going off of like what you're looking at through a microscope versus the real numbers. And I think that's one thing that I would tell like any entrepreneur or creator is like, even though data isn't sexy, like it actually is, because it gives you the power to be able to really look at what's happening in the business from a neutral lens rather than just the emotions of how you might feel on that day. So I do that on a quarterly basis. I'm very grateful. I have a operations gal on my team who is basically as psycho and savage as I am. We actually have September is Send It September, so it's perfect that I'm on this podcast right now.
Love it.
And so we look at everything on a quarterly basis, and we're looking at ultimately like if business were to double tomorrow, where would the business break? And that gives us a really keen insight into who do we actually need and what is our actual ceiling. And I remember last year around October and November, we had a massive surge after I came back from one of my like quarterly breaks and debriefs. And I looked around and I was like, oh, this is ultimately with the team that I have right now, the max that we can do. And if I want to be at that next threshold of income coming in or revenue coming in the business, or the amount of students that we have inside of our programs, there's literally no way for me to do it with the team size that I have now, because there truly are only X amount of hours in the day. And so I think those are moments also that really tell us of like when things get constricted and tight, and we can feel like that discomfort of, oh my gosh, there's not much more time for us to be able to spend on sales or fulfillment or even administrative or content, then that ultimately is where we start to make decisions around who do we actually need to bring in.
Right. That's all really, really good insights. I actually really love, I'm going to write this one down afterwards, but I really love what you said about like, if my business were to double tomorrow, like where would I be breaking? Like, what's the point where I would break? Because that's such a good way to look at things. Like, I'm sure you've seen all these brands that will go viral overnight. And it's like, if you can't handle the, I guess, load of going viral, could you imagine? Like, you always need to be prepared, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me, client experience is so important as well. And even though the business has surpassed multiple seven figures, I still feel like this is a boutique experience that I'm offering my clients. And I think that that level of intimacy and care is why we've created the success that we've had. And so that's something that's always at the top of my mind of like, okay, I do want to make more money. My team wants to make more money. We want to grow this even bigger. There's so many more people that we can help. And also, I don't want to sacrifice the level of care and integrity that has got us this far. And so in order for us to continue to grow, what are the pieces that we need to have in place so that that intimacy isn't lost?
I love that. I want to talk a little bit about your book for a second, because obviously you have a new book out, which is incredible. At what point in your career did you realize that you wanted to write a book?
Immediately.
Did you just always knew?
Immediately. I always knew. I remember after I quit my corporate job, I bought that ticket to South America. We started in Costa Rica, and I was reading The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein at the time. And I feel like that for so many of the spiritual girlies, they're like, that was my first book too. And I remember reading that book and having this moment of, oh my God, I'm going to write a book. And this was so early on in my journey. And it's so funny because I was going through my Google Drive the other day and I saw a little Canva document of the first like book cover that I put together. That was probably in like 2017 or 2018.
Oh, that's so cute.
It was called Life in the Uncomfort Zone, like so cringy, but you know what? It was one of those, it's always been one of those things that I've loved. And when I had actually started my brand, I built a blog called Kicking Asana, and I would blog every single morning. And I love writing. It's something that I've always been really good at, really passionate about. I love reading books. And so I've always known that I've wanted to write a book. I think the big question for me was like, what is the book going to be about? And how do I make it make sense for my personal brand as well?
Right. I love hearing all these like behind the scenes insights. I'm curious, like from your perspective, after you've launched the book, like how has the book impacted your business?
Oh, it's been incredible. I mean, the doors that it's opened already from a publicity standpoint have been amazing. I think, you know, the first piece is we had a huge event and kickoff party in New York and had a Times Square billboard up, which from a PR perspective was massive for the brand in terms of authority and identity. That week I had a magazine reach out to me to be on the cover of their magazine. That granted another billboard in Los Angeles that was just up for the month of September. And so there's been a lot of doors opening in terms of more of the PR side of things that obviously as a creator and as a brand is going to boost authority. From the client attraction side though, I mean, I remember within the first 72 hours of the book coming out, we had people inside of our highest ticket program because they saw the event, or they had a friend that came to the event, or they were actually at the event. And so the book has been a really good, I suppose, business card in that way. And, you know, my program's called the High Ticket Coach Academy because I work with a lot of new beginner business owners. And I think there's this idea that having a low ticket offer is the easiest way to be able to get people in the door and to start building your business. But what a lot of creators don't realize, again, if we look at the data, is that if you have a $50 offer or a $75 offer, the volume you need to be able to make a livable income in the United States is exponentially higher than a lot of these individuals' follower counts. And so I always push people into, let's do high ticket first. You can build your lower ticket later. But if people are going to be building a lower ticket, I do believe that a book is the best low ticket offer that you can create, because again, it's that easy doorway for people. It arrives on their doorstep within 24 to 48 hours. It's something that they can hold. Again, the authority there of like actually having a book that you've written and the process that goes into it, because it's not just like writing an ebook. It's not just, putting up a low ticket membership. Like it takes time and money and blood, sweat, and tears to write a book. And so I think that there is just another level of authority that goes into the people that don't just say they want to write a book, but actually write the book. Creates a lot more of that like no trust with your audience. And so it's been huge for us. I've had so many people who have come into our certification because of it, into our higher ticket academy because of it. And so it's been really cool to just see how it's really been a great bridge offer for people to get to know me, to experience my personality, because I'm very sassy in the book, and you can very much hear my voice as you're reading. And so it's been such an incredible experience, not just fulfilling from the perspective of actually writing the book, but also seeing it in real time, welcome more and more people into my world, and also make a lot of the things that I talk about in my spaces much more accessible for people who maybe don't have necessarily the funds to be able to invest.
Right. Absolutely. And congratulations on your book, because like you said, that is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into something like that. I'm not one who loves writing, so kudos to you. That is absolutely incredible. So I hope that you know that I'm very proud of you, and I hope that everyone else is watching is very proud of you too. Speaking of kind of what you were getting into there, I love the concept of, your book is your lower ticket offer, but then you're basically funneling people into this high ticket coaching program that you have. For someone who is maybe interested in getting into higher ticket offers, what type of advice would you give them if they've only really ever sold lower stuff, but they want to get more into high ticket?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things. The first piece is that the biggest mistake that most people make when they go to sell is that they're really focusing on all of the deliverables and the nuts and bolts of what you get, rather than the transformation of who this person becomes in the process of investing into this higher ticket space. So again, I work with a lot of practitioners, breathwork facilitators, meditation teachers, coaches, and a lot of times the way that they sell is, oh, you're going to have 3 months of coaching, and then we're going to have a call every week, and then you have access to me here, and you've got this portal, and all of those things are great, but what actually makes that stand out and create high value for your audience? Not really anything, right? Versus being able to understand the buying triggers of these people that are desiring to solve a high value problem that they have, and being able to see in real time that this is the solution, the best solution, the only solution to whatever problem it is that they're trying to solve. And so I always tell my clients, we need to lead with transformation, because that's the trigger that actually gets people to buy, when they can see who they're going to be on the other side of this, and we're solving real-time problems for them, and how these different things will come up in their life. And so, for example, if you're selling peace or nervous system regulation or confidence, that doesn't really tell us a lot, versus if you are a creator who wants to be working with women who are navigating a breakup, being able to speak really clearly to the fact that as she does this work, she'll no longer be attracting red flag men into her DMs and coming home from the second date crying, wondering what's wrong with her, but instead attracting a high value man who sees her in her worth, wants to take her to these 5-star experiences, and positions her as the queen that she is. That is so much more vivid than, in the next 3 months, I'm going to help you with your relationships and your confidence.
Yeah. It's almost like you said, it's selling the transformation, but it's also selling with a story almost too, because I feel like storytelling is just so powerful. I'm sure you can relate to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it, right? How does this actually play out in someone's life? And I think the thing that, if anybody's listening and wondering how they can do this with their work, I would be thinking about who your ideal client is. What are the things that keep them up at night? If they're going to brunch with their girlfriends, what are the things that they're complaining about or saying oh my God, I want this so bad? And then from there, that's what you incorporate into your content through storytelling, either through the lens of where you have been to where you are now, or if you've worked with people already, sharing the story of how they have gotten from where your ideal client is to where they currently are.
Yeah. In a second, I want to get into social media strategies, but I've been so interested in the business side of things that this is a great conversation. One of the higher ticket items that you do sell, that I've at least seen that you sell, are retreats. I'm really interested in that whole process. I don't think maybe that many people know that much about retreats and what kind of goes into that. Can you talk a little bit about maybe why you decided to do that and kind of a little what goes into it?
Yeah, I mean, I have always loved travel, and I love being able to get community together. And I'm a Scorpio, so like for me, I don't love surface level. Like I want to be able to go deep with people. And retreats are such an incredible opportunity to do that. And to also, I think if you're in a season of transformation, to be surrounded by other people and like calibrate your environment up to the type of conversations, thoughts, belief systems, actions that ultimately are going to allow for you to ascend into that person that you want to become. And I think that a lot of people, unfortunately, exist in their world and their environments aren't necessarily matching where they want to be. They're matching where they've been. And so there's a lot of conversations that happen where they're like, with money, for example, if you are just surrounded by people who, you know, have a broke mentality, who are constantly saving every single penny, who look at money as evil, then you are going to assimilate to that level of conversation.
Right.
And if you want to create wealth for yourself, if you want to create success, if you want to have a different relationship with money, the best way for you to do that is to be in environments and community where that is reflected. Like there's a reason why we say you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Right.
And so I think that retreats are just a really amazing opportunity for people to get out of their known environment and be in a more expansive environment. And that's what I've felt from retreats that I've attended. And so I've been hosting retreats since 2018 all around the world: Bali, Mexico, Maui, domestic as well, Costa Rica. And they've just been such a catapult for me in my own identity and also in being able to deepen my relationship with the people in my community rather than being, you know, just a face in a screen, which I've never wanted to be. Like I've always wanted to create a real movement around my work, and the best way for us to do that is like in person, right? And so creating retreats was kind of a no-brainer. I think it's also, if you're in the wellness space and the yoga space, it's kind of one of those things that you see all of the time, but they definitely are way more work than you can imagine to put on, from being able to evaluate the fixed costs that go into it, selling, how long you need of a roadway in order to be able to sell it successfully and sell it out, planning every single detail, making the client experience amazing, you know, getting people from all over the world to fly into a destination. So there's definitely a lot of moving parts that go into it, but it's so worth it if you're somebody that really wants to create community beyond the screen. And I think especially in today's age, after we all went through the pandemic, what I've seen more than anything is a lot of people are desiring to actually have these in-person community connection. And so creators that are actually fostering that, I believe, are truly the ones that are going to have like long-term brands and not just be, you know, riding different trends within Instagram, TikTok, or any of the social media platforms.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Just for reference, I'm coming out of, we just had our biggest event of the year and it was in person. And there's something that's so special about in-person experiences, whether it's a retreat or it's an event or just anything along those lines. Like, because like you said, like you can connect virtually and that's amazing. And social media is such a powerful tool, but there really is something so special about doing some sort of in-person event and just getting to meet people face to face, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's so powerful for brands to do it, to have activations, to create a personality around their actual brand and their offerings or their platforms. And then for personal brands, you know, your people want to meet you in person. Like you are a celebrity in their eyes, even if you're like, that makes me so uncomfortable. Because I know sometimes it makes me uncomfortable, but it really is just like the most special thing in the world. And I think that also when we're in a environment together for a short period of time with a specific intention, you can collapse time and like quantum leap so much faster, because the point of that environment is growth, is evolution.
Right. That is so amazing. So I want to get a little bit into your social media strategy, because with all these different things that you sell, and just building your community in general, do you have a clear-cut strategy behind your content? Do you just go with like intuition and what you feel like posting? How does that look for you?
Oh gosh. Well, I think for a while just went with intuition and just like went with the flow. And honestly, I'm pretty devoted and good with being consistent. So that worked for me for a while, because I think that because I speak with so many creators that, oh, just going with the flow or going with intuition kind of works, but then they end up falling off. And we both know consistency is one of the most important elements of being able to create a brand online and actually see growth. And so I usually don't tell people just like go with the flow and intuition. I always give the caveat of like, I've been doing this for 10 years. And so I already have it ingrained in me to make sure that I'm posting consistently. So nowadays, really what I've been focusing on is looking at how to create more authority style content that's beyond just like the cookie cutter educational, but positions me as the person that my ideal client comes to for the information, the activation and inspiration of how they want to grow their business, how they want to feel as a leader. And so a lot of the content that I've been creating lately has been longer form talking head style video. And that's been going really, really well for us. You know, I have a whiteboard in my office, and we'll use that to demonstrate different theories, different lessons that I want to be teaching to my audience, and really just like honestly giving away so much, because I truly believe that when people see how good your free content is, they want to pay for whatever is behind the paywall, because they're thinking to themselves like, if this is what I'm getting for free, I can't even imagine how good the paid stuff is. So I'm very much someone that gives abundantly, because I also know that at the end of the day, information is passive. And especially in my work within the coaching space, the reason why people hire most coaches or mentors or consultants isn't just for the information, but for the accountability, for the support, for the execution. And so I'm not someone to worry about like giving too much away. Instead, I look at that as standing out from the people who are gatekeeping or are keeping their content to be more surface level, because they fear that, oh, if I give too much away, then I'm not going to have anything to offer inside of my different containers that I have.
Right. That's a really smart mindset to have. And it kind of goes along with like the not having limiting beliefs, or not being almost like in that broke mentality too. It's like thinking like, I have so much to offer that I can give away tips for free, and people will still pay. That's how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think that has been huge for us. And I know that sometimes people will say, oh, well, that content isn't always the one that gets the most likes or the most comments. And I'm here to tell you, I'm going to look in the camera right now. Likes does not pay your bills. Comments, they don't pay your bills either. And so I always tell people like that type of engagement doesn't matter. Like what matters to me is how many people are DMing me. Like how many people DM me the keyword after I post a really valuable piece of content. How many people, when I'm actually on a sales call with them, will say, I saw that piece of content and that's why I wanted to come onto this call, because I resonate with that so much, or I'm currently navigating that. And so that's the type of content that, again, it's not necessarily going to go viral, but it is going to build enough trust and authority that people are going to look to you as the solution for whatever problems they have.
So let's talk a little bit about what you were saying about DMing. And, you know, I know you use Manychat to do the automations for DMing a keyword. Can you talk a little bit about your strategy there?
Yeah, so I was a little resistant to having my DMs be like a constant conversation with everybody under the sun in my industry.
Fair.
Until I realized how powerful it is, especially nowadays when people's BS meter is higher than ever, and so many people have invested in like crappy programs or products that have kind of burned them in terms of the personal development industry. So discernment is higher than ever, which is a good thing, right? Because we don't just want people, buying haphazardly and then being unhappy with the product or not feeling like it was a right fit. So within our strategy, for majority of my posts, I've got some comment keyword or DM keyword. Typically, I go for the DM keyword because I think also psychologically, people don't always want to admit when they've got an issue or a problem. And so sometimes the comment keyword, depending on what it is that you're talking about, can feel really vulnerable for people to actually post down in the actual comment section. So DM keyword has actually worked the best for us, especially because a lot of times what we're asking people to do is share that, they're not where they want to be in business, or they're ready for that next level of their amount of clients that they have or money that they're making. And so I always advise people, depending on what the topic of your content is, choose to DM versus comment, because for the most part, if you are working with people on more vulnerable things, they're not always going to want their username down in the comment section admitting that they have X problem. So once somebody actually DMs us the keyword, rather than just sending them the resource right away, we use an automation to just send a human-like message that says something along the lines of, "Hey love, how are you? Thank you so much for reaching out. Is it cool if I drop the link here?" And then we have it wait for a response. Because then once we have the response happening, people are far more likely to actually engage in a conversation with us from that point forward. Rather than, I think a lot of creators will just have it be DM me or comment keyword, and then it just automatically sends the resource. And people are smart enough to know that Manychat exists and automation exists at this point. And so if they feel like they're talking to a robot or it's just all AI, they're probably not going to respond. Versus when we've got it set up so that it acts like a human being, then people are going to be far more likely to respond. So we wait for people to actually say like, yeah, for sure, drop the link. And then we'll drop the link, we'll have it wait for a couple of seconds to mimic what it's like for somebody to actually be like typing a response or dropping a link. And then we'll ask them an opening question relative to whatever the resource is. And from that point, myself or my team will take over and having more of a discovery style conversation with them. And that process has led to crazy results for us in terms of our return on ad spend and our organic results as well. So that has been such a game changer for us in terms of how to not just leverage Manychat and automation in lead generation, but also how to maintain that intimacy and that boutique style feel of really getting to know the people in our audience rather than making them feel like just a number or just a sale.
Yeah, I really love this approach that you were saying about, because you are like in the wellness industry, which can be a little bit more vulnerable to maybe comment something. But I love that you set up these DM flows as well. This way, when someone DMs you, it's maybe a little bit more private, they feel a little bit more comfortable, and then it does start that conversation, which is really awesome. I also noticed that like in your bio, you have a keyword as well. Is it the same style of thing, like where when somebody messages you that keyword that's in your bio, they would get the same type of conversation going?
Yeah, exactly. And the only difference is that we don't have a free resource attached to it. So instead of it saying, is it cool for us to drop the link here, it will just go through 3 different messages back to back, and that last message will be a question relative to our call to action. So it might be something along the lines like, mind if I ask you a couple questions, is to gauge if we're a good fit or to gauge if I can support you.
Yeah, that's really, really smart. I thank you for sharing that strategy, by the way. I think it's really helpful to see like the behind the scenes, because not many people talk about the behind the scenes. We just see the finished product. Speaking on social media, just strategies again, like have you noticed that there's one specific style of content, or maybe when you talk about a certain thing, like it always tends to do well for you?
Yeah, so in terms of engagement, usually when we've got those higher level, I think more generalized type of posts out that are, for example, yesterday I was speaking about the importance of integrity in your life and how to do a inventory check on your values, your relationships, and if you're feeling stagnant in your life, that there's potentially something that you know to be true inside you that you are allowing in your life in some form or fashion, whether it's through your career or your relationships. And so from from an engagement standpoint, those types of posts tend to do really well because they speak to a larger demographic of people.
Right.
From a sales perspective, typically where we see the most momentum or the most movement in our audience is either A, when we are calling out a really specific high value problem that our ideal clients have, or alternatively, sharing a case study of a past client that we've worked with, but still positioning it through the lens of where our ideal clients are. So I'll give you an example of this. A lot of people in my industry will do single sessions. If you think about a therapist, for example, a lot of private practice, you just come in, you're not buying packages with your therapist, you're just coming in to see them when you see them. And so a lot of people in the practitioner space are building businesses off of just trading time for money in these single sessions. And what they end up finding very quickly is that they burn out because it's all about quantity versus quality. And so if we speak to things like that are really revealing something that either the person already knows or touching on a specific point of tension and then speaking to why the tension exists, that typically is why or how people will reach out to us more frequently and say, yeah, I didn't even realize that running single sessions was the reason why I have hit my capacity or why I'm feeling so burnt out. I didn't know that there was a better way. No one ever taught me that. So thank you for revealing this solution to me. And so typically those are the pieces of content that do the best from a sales perspective. And I always tell people, like, you've got your top of funnel content that's going to be the more inspiring, more generalized content. Then you've got your middle of funnel or bottom of funnel content that's going to be much more specific to your ideal client. And top of funnel is naturally going to garnish more engagement or more likes or more shares or more saves. Whereas that that middle of funnel or bottom of funnel content might not do that, but it is going to create more revenue behind the scenes.
Yeah. It's so amazing to hear all these different insights that you have since you have been so successful. I'm curious, from your perspective, what are you most excited about when it comes to the future of social media, the future of business, all of that?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously we are watching AI blast off right now.
Yep.
And it's really, really cool in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of people are actually really scared in a lot of ways because, I was watching a video the other night and it was golden retriever bringing a skunk onto a bed while the girl was sleeping. And I for sure thought that was real.
Oh no.
And everyone in the comments was like, that's AI. And I was like, what? Oh my God. I thought that was real.
For it.
I always fall for it. I always fall for it. If there's a golden retriever in it, I'm like, it has to be real. And so I think that we're in a really interesting time in just the age of content creation, the age of technology, and we honestly don't really know what's coming next. And so in some ways it's hard to say, oh, I'm really excited about X, Y, and Z because things are just changing so quickly. But what I can say is that I personally am really excited to continue pushing my limits and my edges in how I can show up and really be a trailblazer in this space in terms of creating content that is not just deeply resonant with my audience, but also brings us back to the human to human connection that, in my opinion, I know a lot of people would probably be naysayers in this. I don't think AI can totally replicate at this point, at least.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, I exist in an industry that thrives off of human connection, like the wellness industry. I truly believe that the individuals that exist in the wellness industry, while yes, we do leverage AI in a lot of ways for greater productivity, ultimately still thrives off of that human to human connection. So I kind of am like, yes, okay, I picked the right industry.
You're on a good path.
Yes. And so I think it's just continuing to push the limits of, how do we blend that human-to-human connection in the online space while knowing that it's a fast-growing space. And then on top of that, how do we also continue to blend in person with online and to, for me, be a brand that does both and can kind of scratch both itches, because I don't think that people's desire to be connecting in person is going anywhere. And social media has been such an incredible way to demonstrate that we are one of the brands that are continuing to trailblaze in that space.
Yeah, I like hearing your perspective on AI because I think it's one of the things that a lot of creators are a little fearful of. Like you said, it's very helpful, but also can be a little scary. So thank you for sharing your opinions on that. And then when it comes to you and just your personal business, what are you most excited for in your business journey going forward?
Yeah, I mean, we are in a ascendant season for sure. So we've been scaling really quickly, and it's been really fun to watch and just to witness. And so I think for me, what I'm most excited about is empowering my team. And that, going back to what you were saying earlier, you know, I've always been someone who's had a really tight grip of control, and realizing that the next season of my business, and in order to get to the next level, means that I'm actually spending more time focusing on the people in my team and mentoring them and teaching them to be A players in their own regard. That gets me really excited. It's definitely stretchy because I've always been the one that does all of the things, and taking a step back and really letting other people come in and be key players has been a huge like stretch in my comfort zone. But again, it's so important because at the end of the day, if I want to create the level of business that I desire, I can't be doing it alone. And I need to have people around me that are brilliant in their own regard and can really take ownership and have autonomy over their respective spaces on the team.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's so great to hear that you're pouring into your team as well and not just focusing on clients, because that's what keeps your business sustainable for sure.
Yeah.
Going long term.
Yeah. I would be so burnt out if I was just focusing on my clients. I love them to death. I will literally like be in the shower and have a business idea for my clients and then message them immediately after. But yeah, it's been a transitionary period for me of realizing like I have a really big goal, a really big vision. I want to empower as many women to be able to create wealth in their lives, especially women that are pouring so much into the world by helping people heal and helping people evolve in their relationships, their career, their self-image, their health. And I really believe that women that have big hearts and that are service-driven and healers are meant to be the ones that are holding wealth, because when they have it, it circulates and amplifies 1,000-fold.
And just to wrap things up, if you had to give a piece of advice to someone who really wants to start a business based on the thing that they're passionate about, what would that advice be?
Be patient with yourself and don't fall for shiny object syndrome, because building a business is really hard, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart. And doing it with something that you're passionate about and having a strong why as to why you're starting is the most important piece for you to start with, because when the going gets tough, that's what you hold on to, and that's what you remind yourself of, that the work is bigger than you. And that it's not about you, actually. It's about all of the people that you can help. It's about the legacy that you can build. It's about your family, your future children, all the ripple effect, ultimately, of you choosing to say yes to your passion and starting your own career and your own business. And I really believe, because obviously every business is so different, and so some strategies that work for me might not work for another business. There's a million ways to make $1 million. But I really believe that when you have that seed of a strong why, it's almost like a fire protectant blanket to help you walk through the flames unharmed. And you will walk through the flames in business over and over and over again. But if you have that strong why, it's worth it. And you're going to come out the other side stronger, more wiser, hopefully hotter as well, and have created something that you're so proud of.
I need to write all that down. I need to put it like somewhere I can see it every day.
Healthy, wealthy, and wiser when you go through it that way.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here and for chatting with everyone who's watching. I really, really appreciate you being here. Can you just shout yourself out and share your Instagram, things like that, where we can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Should I look at the camera?
Go ahead.
Amazing. So you can find me on Instagram at Ava Johanna. My website is avajohanna.com, and our website for our certification is academyofbreath.org.
Thank you so much, Ava. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Amazing.
That's it.
Yay.
You did it. These things are literally like $15 on Amazon.
That's
and you just put your road mic in.
Yeah,
It's so easy.
I love that. So many tools, so much creator tech now.
I know.